Welcome back to DAGryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. I'd like to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on around here in the train room. Well, to be perfectly honest, not a whole lot. I feel like I haven't been out here much over the last few weeks. Some other projects have just taken priority, like preparing the room in the house for our Lego layout, which is going to be a lot of fun and probably pull me away from the trains from time to time. I've been out here to run some trains, but that's about it. There was one project I was working on, and that was putting lights and passengers in a bus for a friend, and I think I finally have that finished. With that out of the way, that frees up my workbench to start on some other projects. While I feel like I haven't gotten anything done in here, I have taken one major step, and that's going to the hardware store for a whole lot of supplies. I made a very expensive trip to Lowe's today, and I came home with a bunch of supplies. I picked up 2 sheets of the 2-inch foam and 1 sheet of a 1/2-inch foam. You may notice that it's not pink. Well, that's because I went to Lowe's instead of Home Depot. Same prices, slightly different product. Maybe this is going to all be water. Who knows? But I've got the foam that should be enough for me to build the tabletop and the support for the tracks. Next to that, a whole bunch of wood. I got 15 or 16 sections of 1x4. I got a couple of 2x4s and some PVC conduit for the legs. I'm going to have one table that's roughly 4x8, another table that's roughly 2x8, then a smaller section that will be roughly 2x2 feet, and that will be a lot lower than the rest of the table so that I can get a nice river gorge scene going on. So the 2x4s will get secured to the walls to support the weight. All the 1x4s will be used to build the table framing. For the main table, I'll have an 8-foot section of 1x4 on each side and one running down the middle, and additional pieces of 1x4 every 2 feet to make the grid of the table. That will then rest on the 2x4 that's secured to the wall and the PVC legs. There will be no tabletop other than a sheet of 2-inch foam. Once I frame out the 4x8 section, I have to frame out the 2x8 section and then the space that's in between them where the bridge will be going over. I then have to run a shallow kind of boxed frame down the entire length of the wall so it can join back to the rest of the layout, and that will be roughly 9.5 feet long, I believe, and maybe about 5 inches wide. Just enough to support the bridges and the track, and hopefully get it far enough away from the wall that I don't have any clearance issues. Once the framework of those tables is done, I'll probably take the 4x8 section, put a piece of foam on it, and then temporarily support it to figure out what height it's going to be. I'm thinking that I don't want the track to rest right on that surface. I want that surface to be quite a bit lower. So what I'm thinking is taking more foam and cutting out kind of a sub-road bed, either 2 or 4 inches high, so that the track will be that much higher than the rest of the table. Hopefully that means I'm done buying big pieces of foam. I do have a whole lot of bags filled with scraps, so hopefully I'll be able to use that on this section to create any scenery hills that I need to do. As I'm saying this, I'm realizing I still want the big mountain on the main part of the layout to hit the ceilings. I'm going to have to figure out a way to do that because I can't keep buying $50+ sheets of foam. It's definitely more expensive than it was when I started this project. So maybe that mountain isn't going to the ceiling. Maybe I'll have to be okay with it getting most of the way. I'll have to break out all the scraps and see what I can do with them before I go and buy more sheets. Once I figure out how high the grid needs to be to support the foam so that it levels out to the proper level compared to the rest of the layout, I will then mount the 2x4s to the wall so that the grid can sit on it, and then cut legs to keep everything level. One thing that I'm glad I did on the original part of the layout that I will continue on this is I set the legs back from the edge of the table. I didn't want the legs all the way at the edge because that becomes a trip hazard. You know, you might you're walking around the layout and your foot catches it. That's no good. So all the legs are set back at least, I think, 6 inches or so. It kind of gives the feel of the layout floating a little bit, but it also is less of a trip hazard. And if I want to put shelves under the layout, the legs don't get in the way. Now, I'm really excited to get going. It's currently Thursday night. Hopefully, this weekend I can get in here and really get cracking on this. You can't really tell because I'm not going to show you, but it's a mess in here. I'm like straddling random things. I have a bicycle here. I have stereo components and speakers and empty boxes that probably just need to get thrown away. Magazines, t-shirts, random stuff everywhere. And I've already spent some good time cleaning in here. So I think with any luck, Friday night, maybe I can get in here and do a real quick cleaning and get more stuff out of my way. So that way Saturday morning I can just get out here and start working. I would love to get the table grids built Saturday. That would be exciting and inspiring and just awesome. So we'll see what happens. I was kind of surprised I actually got to the hardware store today. One of the reasons I didn't want to go was this was not cheap. We're looking at about $350 worth of supplies here. And you know me, I'm a budget guy. That hurts the wallet. You might ask then, why am I building it this way? I don't know. No, I started building layout with a certain technique, and I want to continue the layout utilizing the same materials and concept. One of the things I think I've learned, at least I hope I have, is that I can make the mountains different so that they don't use so much foam. Because a lot of my mountains are stacked foam, so that means that's solid foam. It doesn't need to be solid. It can be boxed out and done differently. I think there are ways I could have done it that would have utilized a lot more scraps and a lot less sheets. Unfortunately, or fortunately, this newer section that I'm doing is going to be a lot more flat. So I won't be able to really utilize that technique on this portion, but I am thinking along those lines. How can I use less foam and still get a good result? As far as the wood's concerned, I'm using 1x4s. And yes, they're a little more expensive than 2x4s, which doesn't really make sense to me. But, you know what? Let me look at that real quick. Okay, old man can't see the receipt. Old man also can't find his glasses. They were in my pocket. The 8-foot 2x4s are $3.65 each. Whereas the 1x4 sections that are 8 feet long are $7.63. That's quite a difference. So why didn't I just use all 2x4 since I'm so focused on budget? Well, I didn't want to. 2x4s are a lot heavier, a lot more cumbersome, and I don't have use really for scrap 2x4. The 1x4s are a lot lighter and I feel just easier to work with. One of the things I like about my layout is that it's very light. Now, it doesn't matter, I'm not moving it or anything like that, but what I like about it is it doesn't put a lot of stress on the structure. The one section over here with the big mountain, I can just lift that whole end of the table. It's not heavy. It's just foam and 1x4s. It really doesn't weigh much. Before this, I'd built tables of plywood on top of 2x3s or 2x4s, probably whatever I had in the garage. And while it was sturdy, over time I noticed the whole thing started to sag, and I had to wedge in all these extra legs to support it because the table was sinking under its own weight. So with 1x4s and foam, this layout weighs so little so that it's not stressing out the structure, it's not stressing out the legs, and I'm not concerned about it collapsing under its own weight. So while the 1x4s do cost more, I feel it's worth it for the way I'm able to utilize them, build a nice strong table that doesn't weigh that much. And that's important to me. The PVC conduit was a little more expensive than I remembered. I hadn't planned on using that for the legs on this layout. I had purchased that conduit to run power somewhere, maybe from the house to the garage, or I don't know, what else would there have been? But I never ended up doing that. So I had this conduit sitting around. And when it came time to make legs, I figured that was fantastic. And really, I'm very happy with the way it's worked out. They're not susceptible to moisture damage. So if I do get water on the floor, it's not going to mess up the legs. That makes me happy. The two conduits cost $40 total, I think. which is more than I wanted to spend. But if you're talking about, legs for a table, you're going to spend some money anyway. I didn't pick up any nails or screws. I'm hoping that I have enough here already. I was trying not to spend any more than I needed to, which is always tough at a hardware store. I always see little gadgets and little tools that I could really use, and that usually tacks on another 50, 60 bucks to whatever it is I'm buying. So I'm glad I didn't hit 400. That would have stressed me out. Something I wanted to do before I started this was replace the 2 windows in this room, but that's another 400 or 500 bucks, and that's just not happening right now. So I don't think the layout's going to be in my way to replace those later. So I'm just going to start with the layout, hope for the best, and hopefully get these 2 windows in before the winter. Another thing I have to do is somewhere here on the floor, I have a new ceiling fan for the main part of the room, and then I'll put the one I've got up currently over this way, over the expansion part of the layout, just to keep the air moving. First step has been taken. I bought the supplies. Now I just have to make sure I have the time and the energy to get out here and get working. And maybe throw some of this stuff out. I have 2 subwoofers over here. I don't even know if they work. Why do I have them? It's a good question. A couple of speakers over here that I don't know what I'm going to do with. It's just a shame that my garage has been a catch-all since the day we moved in. I've really got to remedy that. But not now. Now I have to start working on the layout. And hopefully next week I'll have a really decent update for you. So stay tuned. This should get interesting. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on DAGryffyn Hobby.